My jolly sportsman from me belly McLean.
Come all you jolly sportsmen who love to roam the hills. The moorcock calls at break of day down by yon crystal rills. I never will forget the day when we left home at dawn, with the comrades rare to hunt the hare was Jack Rowe and Terry Bond. As we went up Kinlither Hill one morning calm and clear, we could hear their hearts a-beating and we knew the game was near, when a rustle in the heather and a hare sprang from her den. Away went Jack and Terry Bond o'er moor and rushy glen. The hare looked independent as she proudly cocked her ears. She laid them on her shoulder as Jack Rowe was drawn near. A youthful rush of thorn and then sure Terry took his place. And as they spinned o'er Kelly's field, it was a lovely race. The sheep run up the hillside as the startled moorcock called. The hares and dogs was torn in the rounded lips and walls. She got the lead and held it for some 20 yards or more, but soon she landed on the strand that's lovely Trustlaw shore. There many a noble greyhound she left with bleeding paws. She slewed her fleet hindquarters before her gaping jaws, and like a fox amongst the rocks she...
And from the Finn Valley, well, the Finn Valley, I suppose, stretches from Lifford to Brocka, you could say. The Finn actually rises in Fintown, and I would be from outside Ballybofey. Wouldn't be the best land in the Finn Valley. I'd say the most fertile is from Kelly Gordon to Lifford probably, or from Ballybofey to Lifford. There's some great land. I'm looking down at it. I have the view, but we survived, I suppose, in the view, but we haven't got the fertile land. When you put a plough down in the fields up here, you're sure to hit a rock every couple of yards you go. But we get on all right. Keep a lot of sheep and just try and make a wee living. Doesn't take a lot to keep me going now altogether. My mother's family, the Gillespies, would have been very musical. They played the fiddle, Mickey, Jim and Huey, and my Uncle Billy in America. Huey and Billy went to America, would have played the fiddles as well. My Uncle Huey would have made records in America. He went to America when he was, well, back in, I think he was born in 1904, so he went to America in the 20s, and he would have made records there in the late 20s, all during the 30s, along with Michael Coleman and Packy Dolan, I think, was another fiddle player that he would have played with. And he came back to Carrickmcgrath, bought a farm in 1964 and died in 1986, I think. Farmed, kept sheep and enjoyed his life, and people would have come from all over the country to hear him play and listen to him chat. There was more talk with Huey and crack, so it was an interesting time, you know, and really no pressure as such. Like, I lived in my grannies with my uncles, and I don't think in all my years from I was a wee boy till I left when I got married, I don't think I ever heard them saying one cross word, like, or giving out at any time. Like, you know, they were real gentlemen, really.
And soon the chase was ended and poor Puss will run no more.
Goodbye.
You know, some people would reckon it's a sort of plant. It's, you know, it's got plantation. You know, not roots because it was around a long time before that, but very much very mixed religion-wise and culturally. You know, I suppose you had the Ulster and microcosm there. When I was growing up, there wasn't a lot of traditional music to be heard in the normal run of things, and then there was a significant development. They had a going away night for a priest who was going off to the missions. Father Oliver, who played the mandolin himself. He was from St Johnstone, and they enjoyed it so much that and so many people came in that hadn't got together for years that they decided to make it once a month. And from that, people started coming out of the woodwork who maybe hadn't had a session for a long time, of varying degrees of skill and repertoire. From somebody like George Peoples, who was an accomplished player, would have known a lot of tunes, and you had the Douglases, 3 generations of fiddle players, and you had people like Jimmy Houston, a fantastic player. My mum was picking up tunes. Then Dr. Cunny was the parish priest in St Johnstone. People who had 2 tunes, people who had loads of tunes. There was at least one fiddle player who had no tunes at all, and but still bowed away for the entire session. So the thing about it was that it sort of brought home to me that actually there was quite a big tradition there, which had been kind of subterranean for a good few years, and it turned out that there were some really good players there. So those are 2 tunes that I made up myself, because I think there is a tradition around here, there seems to be, of maybe it's just modern, of people making up tunes. You've got Seamus, who's made up a load of tunes, Seamus Gibson, Tommy Peoples, a fantastic composer. I've made up a few tunes myself, and that wasn't really that common throughout the country generally. But if you go to places like Cape Breton, they just take that as part of life. They're always making up tunes. And they just all just play them out, and then people learn them, and that keeps the tradition fairly vibrant. So that's kind of what's happening around here as well. So those 2 tunes, the first one's called the Cookstown Maid, and it's kind of a version of the Maid Behind the Bar, and the second tune is called Tara O'Grady's, and it comes out of a tune called a jig called the Butterfly. Is it? Roughly out of that. So those are 2 new compositions.
From St Johnstone, a wee town in East Donegal, a place that was full of musicians when I was wee, and I suppose from that time they all started to die away, but it was populated by farming people and fishing people. I suppose that during the summer a lot of the men would have fished, and then they'd either been planting crops or harvesting them at other times of the year. Potatoes to the rest of the world, but birdies to us. I suppose the music would be like its people to a big degree. Modest, but genuine, that sort of way. There was nothing flash or gimmicky, and there were no showing off about it. They just played the music and they enjoyed it. And I suppose maybe to other parts of the country the music would have seemed much simpler, some way or other. And maybe even if you had gone to competitions in certain places, the music might have been deemed to have been too bare and lacking ornamentation and so on and so forth. But what they did have down there was that almost all of the musicians there could read and write staff notation, and a lot of them were composing music. And every musician I know in there can read and write music. I remember when I was a wee boy, hearing music on the radio, which was nothing to do with traditional music, but I had this feeling for music. And I said my father could spot it in me when my mother wasn't quite sure what was wrong with me, because here was music on the radio and me bawling my eyes out, me a toddler, because the music was doing this and I couldn't understand what was happening to me. But there was such beauty in this, and I just bawled my eyes. I roared and roared. Mother says, "What's wrong?" My father knew what was wrong. He's all right. He's grand. He knew what it was. So, this is a march that my father played. He never told me a name for it. I've been hearing it all my life. I've loved that tune all my life. And my father used to play it in a banjo mandolin. It's a very distinctive sound. I can still hear it yet. I suppose, as far as tunes were concerned, if tunes were gems, I would call that the jewel in the crown. Yeah, my three children play. Two sons and my daughter play. Fiddle players. Kieran has taken the mandolin lately as well. In fact, they had music before they even got here, because all three of them, while still in the womb, had their own favourite tune. There's a well-known mazurka, Kitty's Fancy, that was Kieran's tune.
to always come an old neighbour man, Jimmy Griffin, down to rake. We called it rake, some people call it killian, but around our area it was raking at night. You went to a house to rake. Jimmy always come and he played the fiddle as well, so there were always fiddle playing, and I suppose I had to get scratching as well, but never really kept it up. Like, I started playing a wee bit now again, but would have I remember a big sort of an event in the year would have been Mickey and Jim playing at the sports in Shesh O'Neill for the dancers, and I remember me and Patrick, my brother Patrick, carrying the fiddle cases when we were about maybe 7 or 8, and we were proud as punch with these 2 fiddle cases going with the 2 uncles to play for the dancers at the sports. There was an old man used to come in, Charlie McGinley. Charlie would have been a notorious potting brewer in the area, and he was always a great dancer. He was great for a single dance, but he was a great man to dance the keel row. He had a special dance for it. It must have been, I don't know, it was handed down, I don't know, it probably came in. I know the keel row is a tune from, I think, Newcastle in the north of England, so it must have come in with the British soldiers or whatever. I don't know, but I know it originated anyway in Newcastle, the keel row. But Charlie used to dance the keel row. I remember one night coming in, and I was learning to play the fiddle, and he wanted the keel row played, and he had a pair of Weltons on him, and he danced this keel row on the floor, and he stopped. He says, "No good." He says, "I can't get the right sound with the Weltons." So it was a pair of leather soled boots or shoes, and I gave him the leather soled shoes. So we started again, and he danced again for a while, and stopped again. "No good, can't get the right bit." He says, "We'll have to lift the lino." My granny was sitting up in the corner, and she says, "There'll be no lino lifted in this house tonight." So that's how serious he took the dancing.
I think maybe before it became something for public consumption, I think in terms of people calling to people's houses, which still goes on, you would have had the 2 communities being brought together for musical happenings, maybe in houses, more than you would have had in pubs, or when it moved to the stage where it would go into pubs. So that would have been just before I came on the scene.
You must go into houses. You knew fine well if you looked up towards the fireplace there were going to be a fiddle there. But there's none of that now. Music was everybody's. It was as much ours as theirs, and vice versa. They enjoyed the reels and jigs, and we enjoyed the pipe marches. I got nothing but encouragement from my Protestant neighbours, and great praise. Couldn't beat it. You had respect for another musician, no matter what they were.
Yeah.
And that was just, I suppose, fellows having respect for one another, that type of thing, or peers would be a better word, I suppose. But if you saw somebody else that was good at something, you know, you admired it, nothing else came into it.
So I didn't know any tunes until after I finished playing classical, you know, the classical lessons as we call them, for about 5-6 years. So this was the first tune that I learned from my mum, and I found it kind of hard to pick up because we were very reliant on the notes at the time. So the first thing you've got to look at is the overall context of Donegal. And these are all constructs to a degree, like even the whole idea of Donegal. I mean, Donegal's a really massive county, so to think that it should be homogenous, that it should Donegal style is just, you know, doesn't bear thinking about. Like, it's 100 miles from Kildare to, you know, Glencolmkill. If you left Lifford and went 100 miles, you know, you'd be well on the way to Dublin. So the idea that somewhere we should have that size Donegal would have the same style. So there's actually, you know, there's spheres of influence in Donegal. East Donegal is an area of its own, which, you know, stretch, you know, from Ballybofey right around to Lifford to Rathfone, Fringell, Letterkenny, all that whole area, St Johnston. It definitely has an identity there, and it has a strong musical tradition. You can say that, and maybe you could define it in opposition to a degree to the idea of a Donegal fiddle music that's represented by John Doherty. He's a sort of a prince of fiddle playing. So, and you know, he astounded people wherever he went. He had a phenomenal repertoire, brilliant technique, and he's just going to stand. He's going to be one of those figureheads. But it's dangerous to define a whole, you know, area of fiddle playing by the one person that's so outstanding and singular as John Doherty was. And if you look at other people like Neely Boyle, like Mickey Doherty, his brother, they're all sort of different. There was, but there probably were some, you know, characteristics you could say of that, you know, the similarity between John Doherty and James Byrne in opposition to Sligo, Clare, Kerry, and you can still say the same thing about their characteristics among the generality of fiddlers of East Donegal, which marked them out as being a bit different to what's the conventional idea of Donegal fiddle playing. So you'd probably have maybe a bit more of a relaxed style and a repertoire which would be slightly different, but still you have some commonalities as well, like the Scottish influence and the fact that you're living in an area which, you know, was pretty cut off in years gone by. But Donegal is an exceptional place for fiddle playing, and there's some great fiddle players, and East Donegal is probably forgotten about a little bit because people don't recognise that there was so many great players from here. East Donegal can stand with the best of them. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But I was talking about Willie Gillespie too. Willie would have been an uncle of my mother's. My grandfather was Patrick Gillespie, he played the fiddle and would have sang as well, and they were married to two sisters, two McElwees from up above Braca, from Meanlahari. And this is a song that Willie wrote about meeting his wife. Probably goes back to the turn of the last century. It's called the Glenfin Heather. So I'll sing it. I'll have a go at it anyway. Until I was 21, I lived happy with my mother, my heart being light and free, and I knew not any bother. And sometimes I was inclined, when come the summer weather, for to go and spend a day up among the Glenfin heather. One Sunday afternoon, when the dinner it was over, oh, the evening for to pass, up the glen I went a rover. By the salmon lip so grand, and the castle both together, and the river rippling down from among the Glenfin heather. Well, my fancy led me on by each midday glen and mountain, where the lambs do sport and play, by each bank and crystal fountain. It was there I met a maid, as she went her cows to gather from the pasture where they fed, up among the Glenfin heather. Her eyes were soft and mild, as she spoke to me so sweetly, with her gentle Irish brogue she soon won my heart completely. Her hair a raven hue, a blue ribbon bound together, and her cheeks defied the rose or the bloomin' Glenfin heather. We chatted for a while, to the courage I did gather, for to tell this pretty maid that I ne'er could love another. I said, darling, name the day that we'll meet again together. I'll be at the Braca Fair, she replied, among the heather. Well, the lamb is fair come on, and the crowd began to gather. There were lads and lasses there, making love to one another. But my heart was in a flame when my love I did discover, and she smiled at me the same as she did among the heather. Now with her I spent the day, and right well we did enjoy it, and we talked of married life, and of how we both might try it. But no peace of mind I had, till I made my own forever, the sweetest flower that ever bloomed among the Glenfin heather. And went on to have 13 of a family.
And I think if people really wanted to revive traditional music, why wait until they get them in the schools or at workshops here or there? I think if parents really would like their children to be musicians, they have to start before they're even born. And I think if they wanted to be a fiddle player, they should maybe play good fiddle music on the CD, or have the CD player play, because the child can hear in the womb perfectly, can recognise his mother and father's voice.
It stopped me step on the hard flags, that verse of an Irish song. Patrolman on your Broadway beat, I'm feared you're thinking long. There's a low house, a thatched house at the foot of Bantown Lane, with a half door and a hearth fire and a pot linked on a crane. When daylight's gone and the stars peep and the cans clink in the byre, there'll be good crack when the lamp's lit and the fir flames in the fire. Better crack when the latch lifts and the decent neighbour men make their keely as like as not till the wag is striking 10. For things are quiet in old Tyrone, the way of our world is slow. We keely about from house to house as they used to times ago. For we're all friends at the fireside, man of the house and all. He turns a twist in the heart of his hand, and he tilts his chair at the wall. And we all have share of the soda bread, and the strong tea in the bowls, and maybe the night's a wild night, and the sleet spits on the coals. And maybe the night's a clear night with a moon and a high sky, but what's the odds on a short road, whether it's wet or dry? Then the door swings in the half door, and the decent neighbour men get convoy to the county road as the wag is striking 10. Then the door's barred, and the fire raked, and the socks hung on the crane, and the light dies in the low house at the foot of Bantown Lane. Sinead.